read tons and tons of literature about the American Indians, so I know I have some kind of a connection with them somehow. One thing that was cool, though, if you may have heard, was all of the Sioux Indian nations, of which there are 7, have now come together. They haven't done it for centuries. United themselves. When they made that pact to unite at the camp at Sacred Stone in North Dakota, within hours, a herd of wild buffalo came through that very area. 1,000 of them, wild buffalo. No one can tell wild buffalo where to go or when to go. So that was pretty amazing. And the enforcement people had to move out of the way with 1,000 bison coming their way. So it was a cool sight to see. And another thing that happened was a golden eagle landed among the natives and all of us, and allowed people to go up and greet it. And if you understand Native Americans, you know the buffalo and the eagle are like divine presence. And so for them to have come and be there with them was remarkable. And one of the reasons why I went was this pole. And at one time, one of the old chiefs, when he was giving a talk, he said, "You may think that you brought yourself here. You might think you're here because you got yourself here." He said, "No, Spirit brought you here. Just like the buffalo and just like the eagle." So that's the third reason why I went. I can't explain it. But there's some pull to people from my own native land here in America. So what I'd like to tell you, though, was what happened to me. Here I go there, I'm thinking I'm going to get to protest. First time in my life. I'm going to have, tear gas, mask, I'm going to have a shield, I'm ready to get put in a box. I do yoga, I can get into little areas. I'm going to stand with these people, arm in arm. I was so fired up, and I'd never done this my entire life. And then on my way there to the main camp, because it was one major camp that the Sacred Fire was at, on my way there, I hear this announcement over the plane that today we are not going to have any protest, nor will there be a protest training for today or tomorrow. This weekend is dedicated to ceremony, to celebration of unity and ceremony. So here I am, that's pretty much what I do most of my life with yoga, is ceremony and family. So I'm thinking, oh great, everywhere I go, God is following me. Ceremony, devotion, family, unity was what was going to be going on that weekend. I was not going to get to do any kind of action, what they call direct action. And actually, I want to say to you that they have, before you can even get involved in direct action there, you have to go through their training. And they ask you to take a few hours of training with them so that you'll do your protest in peace, and that you'll maintain a sense of peace and love and ease while you're basically being assaulted by the law enforcement. So imagine, it would take a couple hours to get trained for something like that, to be prepared to be assaulted by government forces. So on my way there, they're making this announcement that there will be a ceremony. I'd like to take just 5 more minutes of your time and describe to you a little bit about that ceremony. The woman who got up to talk about the ceremony was like a grandmother. Very powerful feminine force, like every strong grandmother you ever met. And she started to speak, and the first thing she said to everyone was, "Please be well while you're here. Please be well." After she said that, she said, "The other thing that I wish for all of you is that you'll observe our requests." And one of them was that there be no guns. Another was that there be no alcohol. Another that there be no drugs, and no foul language, and no gang-like activity. And she said the reason for this is because this entire camp is a sacred camp. This entire camp is a prayer camp. And so we're asking you to leave all that aside. This old woman, she said, "Young men, you need to be real men." At that time, all the young warriors kind of were like this, their head down, letting grandma talk. And she says, "What's a real man? A man who can think for himself." And she said, "Women, you should be in charge of the TP. You should be in charge of your own body," she said. So stay to your home and to your family for now. And it was her way of saying that, you know, all the romancing that might happen when young people might get together should be put aside for a time. And I loved, by the way, that they put it that way, that the women in the village would be in charge of that very thing, you know, romance and sexual encounter. That in that village, in that group of people, women were in charge of that, which is a little different from the way that our president-elect seems to behave. Thought that was so contrary to how ordinary civilizations usually are behaving. So then what was really neat was she said that what you're about to participate in hasn't happened in 300 years because it's taken 7 nations to finally unite for this to occur. We're about to celebrate the sacred fire, and she gave it a name, I can't repeat it, and this celebration hasn't happened in nearly 300 years, and it was prophesied to happen. It was prophesied to happen at a time when the 8th prophecy would occur. The 8th prophecy is presently occurring. The 8th prophecy of both the Hopi and the Sioux tribes, these prophecies go back thousands of years. And they're different tribes, different parts of America. They have identical prophecies. One of them, the 8th prophecy, is that a snake will appear. A black snake will appear at the nation's rivers. If you wanted to know what the 7th one was, it was that the seas would turn black. So you probably remember the Gulf of Mexico. So these prophecies are actively happening. And the warriors, the protectors of this land and these waters, they feel as though the prophecy says if they don't stop the snake, then that's the end of the world. If the snake is not stopped, that's their feeling. That's where they're coming from. This is very deeply rooted in them, not just some sort of environmentalist kind of position. But this is prophecy happening alive at this very time. So it's very beautiful. She was really expressing what a rare thing was about to occur. She even gave other rules and sort of organized us in a way. She said certain things like, you know, don't touch the horses. Women all had to get skirts. We had to do all these things, these funny things, so we could be in ceremony together. And she said, finally, one last thing, and I would say this to anybody who is out there wanting to be active in protest in any way. She said, I want to say something to everyone before the ceremony begins, and that is, there's too much anger in this camp. She said, the horses can't be brought in until the anger in this camp is relaxed. So what was happening was horses from other tribes and riders and runners all the way from Arizona were coming to the camp for that very ceremony. And they had to stop the horses. They were bucking the riders off because the horses were feeling the anger in the camp. Mind you, these people had already been assaulted, many of them suffering from something like PTSD, pretty severely even. You know, and so they may have had a sort of a reason to be angry, right? So she said the horses can't come in as long as there's so much anger in the camp. But she said a beautiful thing. She says, please understand that anger is rooted in fear. And there's no fear in a prayer camp. In a sacred camp, we have no fear. So there's no need for anger. And so with that, we all went ahead and went down to this, the 7th fire, this sacred fire, and it was very beautiful because the elders were in the middle, then there was a big space and the horses were coming our way. And then the horses, probably a good 100 horses, came running among our midst and circling inside of us, just running in a circle. In yoga, they call that circumambulation, just going around in a circle, you know, chakra wheels, go around in circles. So it was like creating this energy amongst all of us. And I have to say, there was mostly Native Americans that were there. Actually, the one thing she said was, not only has this ceremony not happened in 300 years, but no non-Indian would ever be invited to something like this. And she says, but Spirit told us to welcome anyone that's here. So I have to tell you, I knew I was in a very rare and special moment. Being probably one of the few middle-aged white men there. Matter of fact, if I didn't bring this elderly lady with me with white hair and a beautiful, wonderful demeanor, I probably would have been suspect. But they were so kind. And so then the ceremony went out, the horses running around us, and they stopped. And then some of the elders spoke, and they spoke a great deal about respect of the earth, respect of one another, how to hold yourself in love and peace, and how to maintain that. A young girl gave a story about how she fell asleep the night before and had a dream, and in the dream she dreamed that the snake appeared, the black snake, and a woman showed up and cut its head off. And the little girl said, well, who are you? And she said, I'm Mother Earth. So after that, after a few talks were given, it was beautiful because then the runners arrived, and there was a greeting of the runners, and then, classically, 20 or 30 different peace pipes were brought out from different camps of warriors. Indians from 60 different nations were there at the time, at that gathering. 200 First Nation peoples have also joined them in some fashion, and they have a drive, a main drive that has flags from all these many different nations, some of them from around the world, some indigenous tribes from all the way as far as New Zealand and